Turner. He is a pathologist here at CJW. He also is the CJW 2013 Frist Humanitarian Award for the physicians. He also, back in 2012, was one of the top docs list of the Richmond Magazine in a pathology with a subspecialty of dermapathology. And that's the things that we've heard out and about in the community. He's also a role model, a coach, and an advocate for people with disabilities. He's going to tell us how little wins are often bigger.
All right, I think this is working. Thank you. Okay. Good morning. Thank you all for, I'm sure that I feel the same way that other folks are going to feel throughout the day, that all these awesome speakers, it's sort of hard to match. Hard to go after the guy who was in Lincoln and Jackie Chan. I have to say, I was blown away by Jackie Chan this morning. Not that I hadn't. It's amazing. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what I, at least in medically, what I call my secret life. So a lot of folks who don't know what I do here at the hospital just assume that I do triathlon and triathlon coaching, and then the folks here at work have really no idea that I wear a Lycra most of the times when I'm not at work. So I'm going to talk about my secret life, which is triathlon, and then some of the journeys that I've taken within triathlon that have far less to do with me than others. So triathlon, as you guys know, really briefly, it's 3 sports. There's lots of variants of it. Generally, you swim, then you bike, then you run, all in one day, usually wearing the same outfit, which usually makes people feel uncomfortable. But it's sort of a complete sport in that you have to be able to do lots of things well, and usually kind of quickly. Most of you have probably seen Ironman on TV. That's sort of the marquee event. The World Championships are in Hawaii. I've done that race once. It was a long, difficult day, and we could spend a couple talks on that, but you'd all be asleep. Some of this talk is about achievement, and I've had my own personal achievements in triathlon that I'm quite proud of, but sort of one of the themes of this discussion is that those achievements are sort of mine. They don't apply to any of you if you ever did triathlon or running events or anything in life. You have your own set of achievements, and I've had mine that I'm very proud of. This is probably the one most recently. It's a blurry picture, but this is the World Championships last September. You have to wear the Team USA uniform, which was sort of a great moment. What you can't see is that I was limping, like it was going out of style. I was injured, but you're racing in the World Championships in London. You show up, and so I still have the uni. It was a great experience. So that's sort of the highlight of my personal career. I'm going to talk about how that's moved in my mind from my focus. Really, I still race, and when I race hard. But I've gotten into coaching. And what's fascinating about coaching is every single person you coach has a different set of goals. I coach a VDOT engineer, I coach a couple lawyers, I coach some folks who are teachers, and they all have different time allotments. Oh, I have 6 hours a week, I have 4 hours a week, I have as many hours as you want to give me. That's the commodities trader. And everyone has different goals. Some people absolutely want to win, I want to crush the competition. And then the other people just want to feel good, I want to look good in a bathing suit. You pick your category, everyone has different goals. And the extension of that is, a couple of years ago, and I'll talk more about her, many of you know Robin Yoder, had her above the knee amputation because of her recurrence of sarcoma in her leg. She and I had raced together, raising money for Team in Training. We had become very close. And because her, after that happened, my opinion was, Robin, if anyone's going to race after you have an amputation, it's probably going to be you. And there aren't a whole lot of resources around, so I said, listen, I'm a certified coach. What could go wrong? Turns out lots. And that's how I ended up getting involved with Sportable, which is a not-for-profit here in town many of you have heard of. They do lots and lots of sports, not just para-triathlon. You can row with Sportable, you can play wheelchair basketball, you can do these crazy things like power soccer and stuff that looks way too intimidating for me to ever do. So this is sort of a blank page. I was going to show some of the obnoxious posts that periodically, especially when you're friends with triathletes and runners, and admittedly I've done it too as well, that if you check your Facebook over the weekend, you would assume that all of your friends, especially, well, Mother's Day weekend was a little crazy, but if you check all your social media, you would assume over the weekend that all your friends ran 3 marathons, everyone had personal bests, they're all winning championships. They're not talking about how hard it was, they're not talking about the time that they tried to do 3 laps and got sick, and that's the people who have 4 working limbs and aren't wheelchair bound and so on. What you hear in terms of this creates this environment where you don't really realize that achievement is made not in those Facebook posts, because that's sort of an exception, right? That's where someone's presenting this false world. The little achievements are the ones that no one hears about. No one posts that, wow, you know, I figured out which leg was the right one to run in today and it doesn't hurt anymore, in the case of a paratriathlete. In the case of an able-bodied athlete, no one says, wow, I finally got up and ran my mile. No one posts that, even though that's an incredible achievement for some athletes. So I'm going to tell you about 2 of my favorite athletes that I've worked with, and I don't want to diminish any of the able-bodied athletes that I've worked with, but these guys are really 2 absolutely amazing individuals. And so among the athlete community, if I apply the typical standard of what achievement is, well, hey, did they run a marathon? If they've done an Ironman, what's their 5K PR? What's their fastest mile? These things just don't apply anymore. And so you start to look at what is achievement for these particular athletes. So this is them together. They've become good friends. I'm going to first talk about Taylor. So Taylor has cerebral palsy. And she showed up to our swimming sessions. Ironically, of the 3 sports, swimming is my weakest. But I end up coaching swimming the most, because swimming is one of those things, especially for a paratriathlete, where you become much more weightless. You're freer. All of the problems with gravity are reduced in the pool, and people can relax, their muscles can relax. And I'll tell you, I have no background in physical therapy. There are people who are way smarter about this stuff, people that I email all the time for ideas. I just sort of get in there and see what works. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm an expert with folks with disabilities. So Taylor showed up to one of our swimming sessions in her chair, and this is just who she is. She's 12, she's going to be 13 here in a little bit, and said, I want to swim, and I heard you're a triathlete, and I want to do a triathlon. And I said, oh my God! Of course, hopefully it was inside. It probably was on my face, and I said, we'll see what we can do. I was terrified, because to this point I'd worked with folks who are missing limbs, maybe even below the knee amputations, which in the world of triathlon is really, on the whole scale of things, easier to work with. But she's wheelchair bound, she's spastic, her muscles don't do what she wants them to do. But what I learned about her, though, is she is about as feisty as they come, and incredibly brilliant. And so she was determined, so she had her mind set. So we got in the pool. And this was early on, because later on, this is at the pool down at the Grapp, CSAC, and if you guys have ever gone to that pool, it's just an incredible pool if you're a swimmer. And this is me with a wetsuit, because we go so slow, I'd get so cold that I would start shivering about 20 minutes in. We'd always have a few volunteers. Oftentimes my daughters would come, and that was always fun, because my older daughter is the same age as Taylor, so they would chit-chat about girl stuff, and I would just kind of go off to the distance. But we would go back and forth in this pool, and mostly talk about food. She is a huge gourmand for being a 12-year-old. She could tell you, she knows exactly what the menu specials are at Peter Chang. She likes Black Sheep, it was the place with the subs and Carver. She knows all the cool places if you need a restaurant recommendations. Also, when we talk about food, we go back and forth. And week after week after week, she started to be able to use her legs. We would every now and then we'd play the bubble game where she'd blow bubbles in the water. We never got her to freestyle, but she could swim backstroke up to 200 meters by the end of the second swimming sessions. Eventually, too, I took one of my old wetsuits and stitched it together, and she swims in a wetsuit, which was really kind of fun because she was a lot more buoyant. So she decided she wanted to do a triathlon, okay? And so I was really worried about this, because whenever I have my athletes racing, safety is the first thing, and a lot of times I have athletes who say, yeah, I want to do an Ironman, John, I want to be the man. I say, okay, but first you need to not die, and then we'll worry about doing stuff. And so we went to a local kids triathlon, worked with the race director, tried to modify the course to make it work for her, but as that conversation continued, it wasn't going to happen for Taylor. It was, she couldn't modify the course, it rained 5 inches, and the run part, which she would have been hand pushing herself in the wheelchair, would have been through a muddy soccer field. And so we're 3 days out. And this was the miracle in her story that I still find so spectacularly beautiful. And she said, I wonder if my sister would help. And her sister, Sydney, here in the swim cap, is a fabulous athlete. Of course, they were born together. Taylor had an umbilical cord accident resulting in what she has now. Sydney plays soccer. She does everything. Sydney does everything. She's a great athlete. She would swim with us sometimes too. She's up and down the pool. So Sydney said, really? There's an opportunity for me here? And just went right through that hole, and it was unbelievable. So this is the 3 of us. So we put Taylor in a inflatable boat in the pool. Sydney swam and pulled her through the water, which I may have a picture of. No, that's us biking. Pulled her through the water. We got her into the chair. We put her on the back of a trailer on the back of Sydney's bike, which you'll see here, which I have about 80 hilarious stories of 2 sisters in the bike. Oh my goodness. You know, anyone who's ever been around daughters, you can imagine what that was like. In fact, she nearly wrecked one time because one of the really fast kids came by, who I guess was a good-looking guy wearing a little racing suit or whatever. And Sydney does this, because he's like, hey, good job. Really positive. She almost veers off, and her sister's in the back going, Sydney, we're gonna crash! We dropped about 3 chains on the bike. We had to stop and do, I mean, it was hilarious. It took us forever. But the bottom line is, the 2 of them, up until this point, Sydney's a great athlete, Taylor couldn't participate in some of these things. And all of a sudden, it's not even that Taylor did a race by herself, she did it with her sister, which sisters are your lifelong friends, is what I would tell them. And so you better make it good. So we did this race, we had a great time, they finished, the crowd went crazy, you know, it was just fabulous. But this was the best part, is later on, Sportable as an organization oftentimes gets their athletes to comment about their experience. And this was the sister that gets to comment. And she said, really for the first time, we've connected on this level. Sports have been an important part of my life, and now all of a sudden we've connected in this way. And admittedly, they're much tighter than they used to be. So, what was their time? Does anyone have any clue? No. No one has any clue what their time was that day. It was just amazing. They have this like huge swell of love surrounding these girls, and really when the best part, the crowd clears, there's this bond that's really lasted forever. Okay, so most of you know Robin. Robin is, in my mind, one of the great enigma type people that I know. She is as hard-nosed and as tough a person as you'll ever meet. And yet, when she works with patients here, she is insanely sensitive. She can read people's minds in a way that's really a little disturbing until you get used to it talking to her, because she knows what you're thinking before you know what you're thinking. So like I said, Robin and I raced together a half iron years ago before she had a recurrence in her leg. And if you know Robin, she's dogged, she gets after it, she wants to know if there's a problem, she wants to know how to get to A to B as quickly as possible. And she took on this challenge dead on. The other thing about Robin that you should know is that she shares a lot. And if you're uncomfortable with the kind of person, if you, like in the South, I'm a born, tried and true Southerner, we don't always say exactly what we mean. You're supposed to get the implication, right? Oh, yes, that outfit is lovely. Which means, no, that didn't work out. But Robin will say, I'm not sure that outfit works. Do you have another? That's more of her style. No malice whatsoever. She's just telling you like it is. And so the difficulty of working with Robin as Robin's coach and friend is that this has not been an easy process. And those of you who will follow Facebook will know that there's tough times and good times, but if you kind of scan it, there's been a lot of really good times. She's done some amazing things, but learning to walk again, learning to be an athlete again is a long and difficult process, and there's a lot of very difficult moments. So this is really one of my favorite pictures, and it's disturbing to people who aren't used to working with amputee athletes. So this is not a folded leg, this is her amputation, this is months after. I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure that if I had an above the knee amputation, I'm not thinking about swimming. She was. She loves to swim. She's a fabulous swimmer. That's her best by far. And this is her first time getting back into the pool, thinking about what sort of challenge is ahead of me. Of course, she got back in the pool. She's still, unfortunately, faster than most people to us. You know, it's just one of those deals. So Robin had determined that she wanted to get back into triathlon. Okay, so there was a local triathlon, this is now a year ago, last April, that we had determined that we were going to get her back into triathlon. This was the one, and it was just, there were so many more challenges than I could have possibly imagined, and challenges that she had anticipated, even some things that she had not anticipated. One of which was, so every para-triathlete is allowed handlers in transition. You can help them grab gear and everything else, and a lot of our athletes, like we have a couple athletes, a week from Sunday racing at Power Sprint, was triathlon out in the West End, wheelchair based and so on, and they're pretty good at switching between stuff. They get two handlers. An amputee athlete gets one handler to sort of hold the bike upright. You can imagine, so if you're a para-triathlete like Robin, you swim without your leg, but then you have to get to your bike, then you need your bike leg, then you take your bike leg off and put on your run leg. So the whole gear thing just gets a little out of hand. So you end up with a handler. So here's me helping Robin. She's finished her bike leg of the triathlon, helping her get off. And I love this picture because she has no idea that this happened. But she's holding the brake down over here on my finger. Yeah. And she thought I was really excited. This has happened 2 or 3 other times. And the first time it ever happened, we were riding at West Creek. It was her first time on the bike. And she comes to a screeching halt, and I grab the base bar, and she squeezes down. And I'm like, Dad, that's great! Good ride! So she got off and uses that as her crutch, essentially, to go put on her run leg. And she finished. So does anyone have any idea what her time was? I don't. She does. I can guarantee she could, if she were here, she'd probably say, "Yo, it was 1:12:38, you know, I really slowed down on the run," you know, because that's who she is, and that's because that's her personal journey, is achieving these things, and pushing and meeting whatever that voice is in her head. But does it apply to everyone? No, it doesn't apply to everyone. It applies to her. It's her personal journey that has some really big ups and some really big downs. And unfortunately, she's in one of those downs right now. Some of you may know that one of the downsides to having a super engineered prosthetic leg on one side and your God-given leg on the other side is the prosthetic leg in some ways is better to withstand gravity than the human leg, especially when the human leg is landed on. So she's had some surgery on that leg to try to repair some damage that she's done. And it's a known thing among amputee athletes. But this was her moment. And that was us celebrating a little bit after. It's weird that I seem to be wearing the same outfit in all these pictures. I don't know how that worked out. So, I guess the bottom line in my conclusion, especially working with these two people who are so near and dear to me, is that, you know, especially when you're talking about sports, there are these measurable things. Here in Richmond, everyone seems to know what a Monument Avenue 10K time is. There are these applications of things, but ultimately, those things don't apply to you as a person. Whatever the achievement is insanely personal, and all of us have a voice that sort of tells us what those goals are, and then it's up to you to kind of qualify and make those goals.
Awesome.
Perfect. Any questions, Dr. Turner, before he goes?
Thank you, John. That was so fabulous.